Hello and welcome to the AVForums podcast for Wednesday, the 1st of April 2015. And joining me on this edition, Assistant Editor Steve Withers.
You've never seen me panic. When I panic, I make this face.
News Editor Mark Hodgkinson.
So much for little green men.
Games Editor Mark Botwright.
The upholstery is already ruined.
And Audio Reviewer Ed Selley.
What do you want? Coke? Pepsi? Saline IV?
So welcome along to the AVForums podcast, and unfortunately we have to start with some sad news, and the sad news concerns one of the nice guys of the AV industry in the UK, someone who has always been a friend of AVForums, always helped out AVForums, and that's Alan Rosa from Sim2, and he was also the managing director of Anthem AV Solutions. Sadly, Alan passed away last week after a short battle with cancer. He was 53. I guess AVForums members will know Alan if you ever attended the Bristol Sound and Vision show and went along to one of his demos. I don't think you would ever forget him, would you, Ed?
No. Let's say I've always been more about the music than the image, but Alan was the closest thing to someone that might be able to change your mind. Wherever possible, he looked at what the state of the art was and just either achieved it or on occasions just managed to often just take it that little bit further. I mean, don't get me wrong, all of his video demonstrations, if you had to ask, you almost certainly couldn't afford it. But
and he always started with that line.
You always said that at the beginning. Yeah.
It was by and large jaw-droppingly good. Really, some of the most memorable demonstrations I've had, certainly in the UK and arguably at any show.
Yeah.
And yes, a genuine loss to the industry.
A genuinely nice guy, and he also had a wicked sense of humour. He had a bigger than life personality as well. One of the things that sticks in my mind, and we're going to come on to it because he helped us out at the Gadget Show 2 or 3 years ago now when we did our stand and we had the demo, and Alan run that. We went out for dinner one evening, and we were stuck in a room which was upstairs in this restaurant, and it was a more reflective room than what Ed usually sits in. Really reflective room. And of course we had 3 separate tables of people. So there was our table, and there was about 15 to 18 of us on the table, and then there were 2 other tables with maybe 8 to 10 people on them. And of course, one group starts talking, and starts talking, and it gets louder and louder and louder, to one point where it was just, well, you couldn't hear the person next to you. It was so loud. And I always remember Alan just manages to bring that whole room down to absolute silence, and he did it in such a way that it wasn't offensive to the other people in the room. It was inclusive. It was done with a lot of humour, and the level in the room was brought down to so we could all hear each other again, and that really sticks in my mind. That's the type of person he was, wasn't he, Steve?
Yeah, he was. He was a really nice guy, and he just had a very dry wit. Knew his products really well too, so always very helpful if you needed any information on something you were reviewing. Quite often used to bring them down himself, pop down in his car with a projector, with a 30-gram projector in the boot for me to review, and then we pop out for a bit of lunch, and it was lovely. It was a real shock. I mean, like Ed, I saw him only 5 weeks ago at Bristol, and so when you told me yesterday, I was very, very shocked and surprised and deeply saddened. It's always a shame when someone personally actually dies, and a real shame. Yeah,
it is a shame, and obviously we pass on our best wishes and condolences to his family and friends. He will be missed. He'll be a big miss. Okay, moving on, and I guess we could go to a trailer first, because the big trailer was released for SPECTRE, which is the teaser, Steve, and very cleverly done because there's absolutely no action in there whatsoever.
It was,
but there is the sound of a nice V12 engine.
It was a surprising trailer in that sense, and I thought quite clever. That it set a tone for the film, and it certainly enticed you in with a bit of mystery, which is good. Not unlike a lot of trailers, it didn't give away any plot points. You didn't have any idea what was going on, but you were definitely intrigued by what you saw on screen. I thought it was a really clever trailer, and as you say, Phil, no action. So it just drew you into the world and gave you a taster of the kind of thing that atmosphere and look that Mendes is going for with this movie. And then ended with a shadowy figure. You recognise Christoph Waltz's voice, but I thought it hooked me definitely. I'm really, really looking forward to this film. I think it's going to be good. The stuff they've released so far in terms of photographs and that sort of stuff's had a very much on a Magic Secret Service vibe to it. The stuff in the Alps, and also there's a shot of Daniel Craig in a sort of a black polo neck with a shoulder holster, very, very much like a photograph of Roger Moore from Live and Let Die. So, I got the feeling, and I really hope I'm right on this one, that Mendes is going to go back to really classic Bond with this film.
I do hope that with those quite differentiated points though, because I rather hope in tone terms they go for On Her Majesty's Secret Service and not the only blaxploitation Bond film that was.
I was going to say, are we including Live and Let Die as one of the classic Bonds here?
It is one of the classic Bonds, but it isn't.
Not for the reasons that it plans to be.
It's very much of its time.
Actually, most of Roger Moore's early Bond films were basically jumped on bandwagons. So blaxploitation, kung fu, karate movies, in the whole thing with Jaws, post Jaws, and
Smokey and the Bandit with the what film was it where they did the bridge flip?
That was the Man with the Golden Gun, and they a brilliant, amazing stunt ruined by a terrible sound effect.
Yeah,
this is true.
And obviously Moonraker post Star Wars. So they were bandwagon-esque, all those films, basically. It wasn't until For Your Eyes Only that I thought they made a genuine standalone, non-influenced Bond movie. Unfortunately, that gets ruined by a truly dreadful Bill Conti score. From what we know, and we know very little, it has to be said, I'm really looking forward to this film. I think it's going to be a cracker and one of the big releases of the year. In what is, as you mentioned, I think last week, a very big year with a lot of big releases coming out.
I think in many ways it looks, as I say, I had a particular beef with Skyfall. I don't like Bond revenge films. I mean, Timothy Dalton's License to Kill was equally crippled. There's some intriguing points. It does, tonally look quite nice. I differ from you, and I think that the Aston Martin is just a totally derivative piece of design. It doesn't have any of the bits that I would associate with the brand, but hey, it's going to biff around and look sharp and be exactly the sort of thing that a man trying to move around in a stealthy and undercover way needs to do that. All things promising. I don't know about you. Obviously, I guess we're encouraging people to watch the trailer. We're saying not giving many major plot points away. I would have said that photo that he was looking at, sat on a sofa, that would suggest to be a fairly major fundamental part of the plot to me, but perhaps we differ on this.
I'm not really a Bond fan, but I quite like the trailer. It wasn't very Bondy. It was dark and atmospheric, and the bad guy looked quite good. But I didn't really know who anyone was apart from Bond, because I don't really follow it anymore. But I like the quote from the bad guy, whatever it was, about him being something in what was it he called?
A kite in a hurricane.
Yeah, I quite like that. I quite like the way he delivered that. So it was quite promising. I won't go and watch it, but I quite like the trailer.
At least you're honest, Mark. At least you're honest. I'll give you that one. Right, let's move things along. Competition time. Let's see what we can win. And who am I going to victimise this week? Let's go to Mr. Selley.
Go on then. Right, well, latest competitions. Thankfully, none of these are going to require you to rush. We've still got some breathing space from April Fool's Day. Necessary Death of Charlie Countryman, 3 copies of that. The Sound Magic P30S headphones, which is much more enthusiastically endorsed by me. 2 pairs of those by 20th of April. If you need a pair of headphones, well, I mean, they're not actually that expensive. If you need a really, really cracking pair of headphones for sensible money, they're excellent anyway, but you've got a chance to get them for free. So just, if you haven't already entered that, why not? There's something wrong with you. The Coen Brother Blu-ray box set on the 26th of April, actually some pretty damn good films. Deadline for that 26th of April. And last but by no means least, a Dani Cubic 1 stereo system. Now, that's jolly good as well. A nice piece of Scandinavian design that also actually sounds quite a lot of cop as well. And you've got until the end of the month for that. So you can dilly-dally around, and we'll mention it a couple more times and go, oh yeah, and then enter it at that point. Those are your competitions, Mr. Hinton.
Okay, thank you very much. And as you say, April Fool's Day is the day that this podcast goes out. The reason we're not talking about April Fool's Day is that we're not recording it. We're recording it the day before, and we don't know what people have done as April Fools. So,
well, I imagine in an hour's time this will be a giant April Fool's podcast.
Well, there'll inevitably be a good BMW advert. They're very good at April Fool's Day. And then we'll see what else crops up.
I'm imagining there'll be something around the election, seeing as that's now kicking into gear, and best avoid the TV for the next 38 days.
Yeah, but how on earth do you tell the difference between someone behaving deliberately like an arse and the election?
That's
Ed
it.
Miliband has been participating in April Fool's Day for the last 4
The
years.
world's longest setup.
Is it just me? Are you thinking that at the last minute his brother's going to turn up and say, actually, it's all been a joke. I'm really in charge of the Labour Party. Clearly, we aren't so stupid we'd elect my ugly and ridiculous younger brother.
Obviously, those are the opinions of Steve Withers and not AVForums. Anyway,
I think anyone with any sense is thinking when the Labour Party, where the guys
look. There's a reason why we don't discuss politics on the forums or in the podcast.
This isn't a political statement. Though. This has nothing to do with Labour politics or Conservative. Couldn't care less. I'm just saying Ed Miliband does not look like a world leader, does he? Let's be honest about this. This is purely personal.
Yeah, but David Cameron doesn't either.
No, nor does he.
So-
As I say, it's all summed up very, very neatly on Twitter. As I say, if Ed Miliband posts something within literally 10 seconds, the first reply is always "F off Beaker." And if David Cameron posts something within seconds, the first reply is inevitably "F off Dish Face." It's just how it works.
What does Farage get then?
He just gets a sort of sustained medley of abuse. Whereas with Cameron and Miliband, it is absolutely consistent. It's like there is a shift, a secret organisation of people that just sit on Twitter waiting for an outburst from either of them, and their only
Like the
mission.
people in the hatch in Lost who have to sit there at their computer.
Yeah, it is literally like
David
that.
Cameron's posted something.
Pressing
Quick.
that button.
Off Dish Face.
So, like I was saying, best hiding away and not looking at any media for the next 38 days if we want to avoid the election stuff. No doubt it's going to get pretty silly very quickly. Right, so we said it's the beginning of the month, which means we've got some upcoming reviews apart from Ed. Ed will do the middle of the month update.
All of my ones are fresh and ready to go now.
Really?
Well, there are 3
Right.
uploaded.
That's last
Yeah, but
year's.
that's last month's.
Oh, yeah, okay, but you
we've got to
haven't
save
used
them in
them yet.
reserve to use them through that month. We'll wait on the next batch. Anyway, so let's go to somebody relevant.
I love you too.
You know I love you, Ed. Mr. Withers, what do you have coming up for review?
Well, tomorrow, on the 1st of April, hopefully this is not an April Fool's joke, I'm going to be getting 2 pieces of Arkham kit. And up until now, we haven't seen, I know Ed's done a couple of Arkham DACs, but we haven't seen much in their way of their AV stuff recently. And so I'm quite excited to get back out. I'm going to get the AVR 750 AV receiver and the UDP 4-on-1 Blu-ray player, universal Blu-ray player. So that's excellent. And I'm also picking up, I'm probably the week after, not this week, but next week, getting a Yamaha YSP 1400 soundbar. Again, Yamaha makes some great soundbars, so that's going to be good, hopefully. Possibly another piece of review kit, but I don't want to say what just yet.
Oh, no, keep that one under there.
Yeah, that's what I mean. That's why I'm not saying it.
Yeah. Right, so moving on. Hodge, what have you got coming up?
In terms of AV, I've got a Samsung J9000 due in tomorrow. I've got a Samsung Blu-ray player, 4K scaling Blu-ray player, and then I've got about half a dozen Android boxes, and hopefully quite soon the Nexus player and the Amazon Fire TV stick.
Good stuff. Ed, do you know what you're doing this month? Or?
I know some of them. I'm listening to one of them at the moment to monitor the podcast. If you remember Noble, the people that gave us £1,000 earphone, the good news is I've got one of their cheaper products.
All right, so it's not the supercar company Noble.
No, not the plastic thing from Leicester.
Ah.
And then the third of the 4 turntables. The 4 turntables will be going through. Things are getting serious there. Shit's getting real, y'all. And hopefully, towards the end of the month. Well, I know everything I do towards the end of the month, but in terms of them physically turning up, will be towards the end of the month as well. Q Acoustics 3000 series, because let's face it, that's one of the most important speaker packages that's been released recently. So it's probably about time that one of us had.
I think the supplier of my speaker package would have something to say about that.
Well, I know that, but this is affordable. This is and let's face it, almost everything that Q Acoustics has ever released has been pretty bloody good.
Yeah, they are pretty good at what they do.
Yeah,
I've got to say, I quite fancy getting a pair of their latest 3000 series in and having a good listen to them. Yeah,
I'm hoping for a set in the leather because I'm kinky and I just want to see how they do it.
Quite clean.
Yeah.
Studs and hooks optional, presumably. Right?
Well, we'll see. It's
comes
lot
with a
of
free
effort,
GIMP
Steve.
mask. Right, as I alluded to, I have the M&KS 150 Mark IIs in at the moment for review, with the 150T surrounds and 2 of the new V12 subwoofers. The big
How's
boxes.
how's your back, Phil?
Oh, the big boxes arrived. Struggled with them up the stairs, opened the box, and then realised they're tiny.
I told you to unpack them at the bottom of the stairs.
They are quite small, but pack quite a bit of punch. I mean, I've put about 4 hours in already with those, and they're really good. I've got the on walls turning up this week, so we're going to do a bit of a comparison piece between the big 150 Mark IIs and the on walls, and then hopefully you should be getting the S300s, which are the new M&K speakers, which are based on the 150s, but are said to be leagues ahead in terms of audio quality. So that's got those coming up. Got some Yamaha products coming in. So I've got a Yamaha AVR, a Yamaha soundbar, and what else do I have this month? Oh yes, a 40-inch 4K TV from Samsung. It's actually sitting in the room with me now. It was just
You can
delivered.
finally watch your Canada footage in 4K.
Yeah, it's 40 inches, so I'll have to sit
Close
right
up.
with my nose right up to it. So interesting to see that one, because I've got to say again, I was expecting a big box to turn up, and that one turned up, and it there's 9 to it.
Welcome
at all.
to the new world of televisions, Phil.
Yeah, I mean, I was
Last
expecting.
one you had was a CRT, was it?
No, not quite. I mean, I think the last TV I did was probably I think it was a professional plasma
Yeah, quite
Panasonic,
big and chunky.
which turned up in a flight case. So I was expecting this. The guy turns up with it under his arm. So yeah, that should be interesting. First TV I've looked at for probably about 18 months. So interested to see how far the tech's come along. And obviously Samsung seem to be getting now well ahead of everybody else this year, releasing stuff. We've seen this will be the third or fourth screen that we've seen from them. So hopefully the others won't be too far behind. Maybe Steve's getting something from one of the others. Who knows? I'm just keeping it a secret. And in terms of games news, watch that space. I'll let Mark save it for their games podcast to let you know what's coming up in terms of reviews and articles and all that kind of thing. Right, so let's move on. Let's go to an Ask the Idiots question. Quite relevant, as we've just been talking about 4K TVs. This one came in from at Lefty Guitar 1963 via Twitter. And will all TVs produced in the next few years be able to do Rec 2020 or DCI? He says DCI 1.3. I'm suspecting you mean DCI P3 here, Brian.
Yeah.
DCI, yes. Rec 2020, I would say not likely.
It's not
I would
much point,
say
really, is it?
Incredibly unlikely. And we'll be lucky. When we say TVs hitting DCI, of the current range of TVs that are coming out, those that are using quantum dot, or Panasonic are using
The phosphor.
Yeah.
The coloured phosphor thing.
Colour phosphor. I think Panasonic are getting 98% of DCI,
Yeah.
and with quantum dot, Samsung at least are getting 92% of DCI. So we're not even quite at DCI. Pretty close, to be fair. I mean,
Yeah.
not really much difference, but we're almost at DCI. But if you look at Rec 2020 on a CIE chart, it's gigantic. And it's only really there because the ITE included it as part of the standard for Ultra HD. But it doesn't have to be used. And I think there's been a lot of confusion here about this.
What you'll find is Rec 2020 is it's so wide that it's going to be impossible to reach, but everything else fits into it, which is why they've specified Rec 2020. So when they say Rec 2020, don't expect that at all from a professional point of view. So that's filmmakers and so on, because none of the cameras can do that, and not likely to do that within the next 10 years. So none of the material that's being captured is going to be captured at Rec 2020. It will be at DCI. Post-processing, I don't know anybody that produces any professional monitors or anything that can do Rec 2020 or likely to do in the next 5 to 10 years. And like we say, playback-wise, not likely. So it's a standard, it's a recommendation, which is why it's called Rec 2020, Recommendation 2020. Everything is going to fit within that. Nothing will ever reach 2020.
Yeah. I mean, it is included in the specs for Ultra HD, and it is included in the specs for Ultra HD Blu-ray. But when you think about it logically, if you're making, if you're producing digital cinema packages for the movies, and those are using DCI, it makes sense just to port that across and use it for the basis of any domestic release.
Yeah.
Yes, TVs definitely will be hitting DCI over the next few years, and that will become the standard, I expect. And I think content's going to be using DCI.
Yeah. And DCI is nothing to snub at.
Bloody good.
Turn your nose up at.
Cinema looks
It's
pretty good,
absolutely brilliant compared to Rec 709, which we've had for 20 odd years now. It is a big step up, DCI. So
yeah, if you look at the review of the JS9500 or the JS9000, you'll see there's a graph in there showing DCI and where they actually currently measure. and you'll get an idea of just how big a colour space that actually is.
And at the end of the day,
Rec 709.
and at the end of the day, what use is a Rec 2020 TV if none of the film studios, none of the TV studios, none of the cameras are able to capture anything at Rec 2020? You can't watch anything at Rec 2020, so there's no point having a TV. DCI exists, material being made at that, mastered at that makes sense. So hopefully that answers your question. At Lefty Guitar 1963, go follow him on
Brian
Twitter.
Mahan, I think.
Brian Mahan, yeah. Okay, let's go to some techie stuff. And the first one's quite interesting, Mark. The Amazon Fire Stick, or Stick.
Can't buy it in Holland yet.
This looks
or
like
Sean Connery.
It was a poor Sean Connery. No, it wasn't Dutch.
That's what I thought. It was a very, very poor Sean Connery.
Yeah, but then you've not got any room to speak, Mr. Withers, when it comes to that kind
I'm
of
not
thing.
Scottish, so, you know.
Hang on. Just because you're Scottish doesn't mean you can do a Sean Connery impression, all right? Let's just draw a line there. Anyway,
start there, isn't it?
Anyway, the Amazon Fire Stick, it looks like a really interesting little bit. Okay, so tell us all about it.
Well, it's just one of these little media streamers, but rather than being a box form, it's a dongle, so it just plugs into your HDMI socket. It does all the stuff that the Amazon Fire TV box does, pretty much. It hasn't got a USB input, but that's about it. So you've got all your streaming services. Obviously, it focuses on Amazon Prime quite heavily. It does Netflix, YouTube, blah, blah, blah. iPlayer and all the rest of it. But the interesting thing about these devices is they're essentially Android, so you can sideload all sorts of Android apps onto them and get a lot of the functionality that I talked about in the last podcast with the sort of the basic Android box. So a standard Android box. So there's just all sorts you can do. Run media centers off it, and just Sky Go, Virgin TV Anywhere, all that kind of stuff. Tidal doesn't run, but Spotify does, and there's just a lot of Android apps will run off it, and it's extremely cheap. So it's £35 now. It was £19 on the introductory offer, so it's a very cheap way of making your TV smart. And it features some technology that allows you to it will log you into the hotel Wi-Fi without any issues.
Good. I think we should make a sticky as well for the Samsung TVs that are in most of these Premier Inns and stuff. How you get around the security so you can get into the menus and change stuff.
The service menus.
Is that a sign that we've just gone too far, that we can't check into a hotel room without quickly doing a quick calibration on the TV? Because I do that as well.
I do it every time I stay at a Premier Inn. I'm probably giving myself away now. Premier Inn, I'll know who it is. I log into the forum, I get the code, and I change all the settings on the TV. And it looks beautiful once you've done that.
I never even turn my telly on. I just go to the bar.
Yeah, well, that's Bued, isn't it?
That says everything we need to know, Ed.
I've got to say, I was a Panasonic.
Do you know what? I think we are obviously talking about different levels of,
alcoholism,
societal rejection here. But I think saying I'm going to the bar wins out over, or I'm going to sit in my hotel room and tweak my television.
No, I didn't say that. I said
surreptitiously do it under cover of nightfall.
Other people's rooms.
I do go to the restaurant, Ed, which is normally part of the bar in these places. I do go there, and I don't spend all my time in the room, but it's one of the things that I do. If I'm going to watch a TV, I log into the forums. This is where AVForums is really useful, and where our members are brilliant. Find the code that I need for the TV that's in the room, and I'll change it if I'm going to watch it.
I never turn the telly on.
I was in a hotel at Christmas, and they had a Panasonic, an older Panasonic, and Laura and I were watching Bridget Jones's Diary, and I did a quick calibration on it, obviously, and but I'd forgotten where the frame interpolation feature was on these older TVs. It was on a different menu, and we were watching it because they'd reframed it to 1.85 to 1, even though it's a scope ratio movie. And Laura was looking at it, and she went, "Why does it look like a crappy TV movie?" And I said, "I know why." And I eventually found it and turned it off the frame interpolation. And I thought, I was quite proud of her, because she's obviously been watching a good TV for long enough now to appreciate how shit frame interpolation is. So, excellent.
That's how we're going to judge things now, is it? If Laura picks up on it, then it's...
So right. It can be quite scathing. I don't, about some of the stuff that's come through the lounge recently.
Yeah, well, I've got to say...
You're a fan of curves, I've got to say.
I've got to say, your crack's improved recently, so you're obviously picking up on her jokes. She's
I've
obviously
seen a lot
funny
of
one.
Material, actually.
Yeah. I've lost where we are. Anyway, DTSX, we've been giving them a hard time, Steve, because they were supposed to announce stuff in March, and as we can tell, we're April Fool's Day today. This is not an April Fool's. They have made an announcement that they're going to make an announcement.
Hooray!
Yes. They've announced that there'll be a launch event for DTSX at their head offices in California on the 9th of April, so in 8 days' time, I guess, from when this podcast goes out. And that's good because, I think personally, they've been a little bit disingenuous over the last 4 months by not giving any information at all about them. I mean, Dolby Atmos and Auro 3D are already available in the marketplace. They've been pretty open about how their system works and what it involves. DTS haven't told us anything about speaker configuration. We know it's object-based, but otherwise, and we can assume, based upon the disc that we got at CES, though, that it's delivered through DTS HD Master Audio. And we know that they've lined up quite a few manufacturers to support them. Again, based upon the demo disc they gave us, I can assume that Lionsgate and Fox might be supporting them in terms of movies. But, I think what everyone wants to know more than anything else is what kind of speaker configuration system is going to use. And they could have at least mentioned that at this point. I think they just basically, the whole demo they did at CES was a totally unrealistic, non-real world environment in a circular room. And it was just basically to distract people away from Atmos for the moment. And whilst I'm not knocking them, hopefully it'll be really good. And I'm sure it will be. And it's pretty well positioned to be the de facto format, given that almost every Blu-ray disc currently uses DTS HD Master Audio. I just found their approach to date, and the way they've been handling things a little bit disingenuous. But, I think, like everybody, what I don't want are 3 completely incompatible formats duking it out in the marketplace right now, because it just ends up no one wins.
If they do that, if they go for something different again to the 2 that have already appeared, I think the whole concept of upwards or downwards firing is dead at that point. If there is no consensus at all, who cares? And the answer is not enough people to want to try and chance their arm. So that's it. Nice fun while it lasted, but an inability for people to decide what they're going to do means that none of them are going to win out.
So you've wasted your money, Steve.
You still got that Turtles disc?
No. Well, no, my Gravity disc should come next week. Gravity in Atmos, I'm quite looking forward to that. But basically, when you're an early adopter, you always end up losing, don't you? It's just the way of the world, and I'm used to it now. I mean, when I think about the amount of money I've poured down the drain over the last 20 years, I'd start to cry.
Right, okay. I'm kind of with Ed on this one. I think there's too much going on. People just won't make their minds up on stuff. We've got no idea where things are going, and it's not good when you're trying to launch new formats and that kind of thing happens. You usually find out that everybody's a loser. So I'm with Ed. Everybody's a loser. Is that right, Ed?
Yeah, we're all losers. Well, no, that's not necessarily the same sentiment, but yeah, you need if you look at formats that have been a huge success, absolute consensus between manufacturers and film companies and licensees as to what's going on. If you look at formats that haven't been much of a success, look for rival formats, confusion over what they should do, various iterations and evolutions when the public just wanted something that worked from the outset. It's this one ticks all of the boxes for failure.
I guess the biggest thing here is that is there actually a need for it? And to be honest with you, I mean, yes, I've been in demos and it's been quite impressive, but also, I've been testing different speaker systems in my room for the last few weeks now, and I've got to say I'm reasonably happy with 5.1, and don't feel the urge that I need to update.
No, I don't think. I think if you look at this logically, and we can eliminate Auro 3D initially, because we're talking about the big boys here. We're talking about Dolby against DTS. From Dolby's perspective, this isn't about necessarily home audio as much as it is about their move to, as much as they possibly can, dominate the cinema industry in terms of both digital cinema packages and Dolby Vision and Dolby 3D and obviously Dolby Atmos. And what they would like to see, is for film studios and filmmakers to mix in Dolby Atmos and then bounce down a 7.1 or a 5.1 or whatever, and they support that across for domestic release. And from the point of view of the studios, maybe that makes sense. It might be cheaper. So that's their point of view. And obviously from DTS's point of view, since they are largely the de facto format for sound on disc at the moment, on Blu-ray disc, they obviously want to maintain that position. If DTS have got any sense, they'd pick a speaker layout that's very similar to Dolby. Or and that way there'll be less. Because at the moment, if you talk about 5.1 and 7.1, the speaker layout's identical, so it doesn't make a difference whether you're using True HD or Master Audio. We'll see in 8 days' time. But yeah, as Ed says, if it ends up they end up going, mano a mano with completely different formats, then it's gonna be an absolute bloodbath.
Yep, because it's difficult enough to stick 2 speakers on your ceiling. Never mind 2 for Dolby, 2 for DTS, and then if you want to have Oro as well, you're going to need at least 4.
I look forward to Steve doing it for us to be our point of reference.
Yeah, you'll probably buy out all the JBL control ones from Richer Sounds, won't you?
I've already got 6 of them.
Right, it's time to move on. We're going to games news next. Right, we're going to games news, but we're going to talk about Spotify. Tell us why, Mark.
Well, this is the PlayStation 4 and the PlayStation 3 actually have finally got the Spotify app. And it's kind of big news because it's an exclusive. We've seen exclusive games on the new consoles have been somewhat lackluster. And so perhaps a kind of different battleground is the exclusive apps. And for in-game music, this makes a huge difference to players. This comes in conjunction with Sony kind of killing off their Music Unlimited service, which had kind of a poor take-up. It didn't really get much of a groundswell of support, I think, largely because it was kind of tied into the idea of subscription model. So they've shelved that, come back with this PlayStation Music with a partnership with Spotify. It's exclusive. It's kind of hazy how long it'll be exclusive for, but thus far it's a big deal in the sense that it's not on the Xbox One. It's very sleek, simple to use, easy to navigate, and obviously makes a huge difference that you can now play whatever tunes you want in game, and you've got the free version there, and you can also upgrade. And
that was going to be my big question. Do you have to pay for it, or do you get the free version? So you do get the free version.
Yes, the free version's there. This was a lot of people were worried about that it would simply be another case of a service coming out like Microsoft had with their Xbox Music, which would be a subscription version. No, it's the free version, and even better than that, you don't have to get a PlayStation Plus subscription, which Sony have kind of slowly moved to put things like multiplayer gaming behind that. So it's not behind any kind of a paywall, and you can control it from your phone or tablet with the app on it, and that makes it, that's the best case, the best scenario for using it, because otherwise you have to kind of suspend the game and then go back if you want full control. There's a kind of quick pause menu that will do your basic functions like pause and volume and the like. But, if you want full control, if you've got your phone handy, then it's just perfect just to be able to control it as and when.
So does it allow Spotify audio in-game?
Yes.
See, that's handy.
That's the huge thing, which is, you don't have things like from the user interface, things like custom playlists. But, if you've got your phone, if you've got everything all loaded up there, then that will make a huge difference. And it's also great if you consider that a key selling point of these consoles will slowly become multimedia use and kind of leveraging what pre-existing subscriptions other people have. So if you're already paying for Spotify Premium and you're in the market for a games console, if you're paying whatever it is, what's it, about £100 a year, is it? Does it work out?
Month, isn't it?
Yeah. For what's the Spotify?
Yeah, for Spotify Premium.
120 quid a year. Just £10.
Exactly. So if you're in the market for, a approximately £300 console, that makes a bit of a difference.
It's also a brilliant move from Spotify because those adverts are going to get very annoying if you're gaming, aren't they? They're really going to take you out. So, look, I reckon they'll pick up a load of premium subscriptions from this as well.
Yeah, I think that's it. It's smart for everyone all round, I think.
Mm.
Yeah, it's something I've been doing. I've done it with the Fire TV and the Android boxes. I've had Tidal or Spotify streaming over the top when I've been playing some of the little Android games, and it's excellent. It's an excellent thing to be doing.
And of course, you don't mind me diverging the conversation to Tidal, do you, Mark? Because there was some big Tidal news yesterday, and that's Jay-Z's obviously bought the company under one of his pre-existing companies, Ed, and he's saying it's Tidal for all. Well, if you actually look at it, he's got a lot of big names behind it. They're all multi-millionaires, all saying that Tidal is basically there to ensure that they keep making money.
Yes.
So it's not Tidal for all.
Well, ultimately, I'm in two minds. But I mean, the actual I was only able to watch about a minute and a half of the actual launch video. It's the most
more than what I did.
Cringe-worthy thing I've seen in a long time. But nonetheless, we have to, I don't know about you, but I very rarely, as a self-employed person, elect to work for free. So, I do feel that some of the deals that are currently, being offered to artists by subscription services are just wholly and utterly inadequate. One of the things that well before Jay-Z got involved, Tidal had made it abundantly clear that they were aiming to get nearer to the sort of rates enjoyed by artists for commercial radio playback, and that is important. People should not be invited to work for free, unless they choose to of their own volition. So yes, okay, it's a lot of very, very rich people coming together for a celebratory backslap, but as well as those very, very rich people, there are thousands of artists on these services who aren't.
Well, you see, that was the big question being asked, certainly on Twitter today, is everybody on a level playing field when it comes to the royalties that are being paid by these services like Tidal?
Pass is the short answer. I don't know. But I would say that that when I chatted to members of the Tidal team prior to me writing my review, they were adamant that under their sort of oversight, it was a level playing field, and I can't see them changing too radically. Otherwise, you'd just leave yourself open to accusations of being massive hypocrites. Well, don't get me wrong, that wouldn't necessarily stop some of them, but I think it's important.
The other bit of news that comes out of this, Mark, is that it's now a 2-tier system. It was £20 a month, and that was the only paid option you had. They're following Spotify, aren't they?
Yeah, exactly. They've now introduced. Well, they sold it as Tidal launches new premium service, which is completely reverse of the case. They're actually introduced a new lower tiered service with presumably 320 kilobits per second streaming to match Spotify. So it's not the lossless streaming you get for £19.99 a month. It's lossy now, like Spotify, but essentially the same, because you get all the same features and curated stuff and all the same songs. So
it must be said that the curated playlists, when I first started using Tidal, for every curated playlist that was actually some cop, there were 4 or 5 of them where I didn't know who they were aimed at. It's got a lot better. They're really getting their eye in, and the Electronica playlist that runs monthly now is exceptionally good.
Yeah, absolutely love that. I'll look out for it beginning of the month.
And actually some of the Tidal Tuesdays have been quite good for discovering new music as well. So yeah, it is starting to deliver on sort of things. And let's be honest, a number of users do not need lossless. So it makes perfect sense to leverage this content in a more accessible way.
And it looks like with Jay-Z getting on board, it's also going to have a lot of exclusive content that Spotify won't have, so that might actually work in their favour. So be interested to see how it goes forward. And talking about exclusivity, that is the Spotify app on the PlayStation. So is that games news, Mark?
Yep, that is games news.
After a fashion, anyway.
It's been a slow week.
It's been a slow couple of months, frankly.
Speak for yourself.
Back in your box with us.
No, I'm talking about in terms of games news. Hasn't been, Mark, has there been any really major games news recently?
Well, we could talk about the fact that Legend of Zelda Wii U has been delayed, but to be honest, I'm too depressed about it.
Yeah, don't talk about that.
Segue from that.
I'm going to play some music so I don't have to. Okay, so moving on, movie news, and the movies team, the cinema team, have been busy again. Steve, what reviews did they put up over the weekend, and what can people catch up on?
Yeah, they've been hard at work, and you can currently on the site read reviews of the new live-action version of Cinderella, which was directed by Kenneth Branagh and reviewed by Cassandra. We've also got Get Hard, the new comedy, I use that term loosely, from Will Ferrell with Kevin Hart, where he plays a sort of stockbroker who's being sent to prison, and he hires Kevin Hart to sort of make him harder and prepare him for prison time, basically. And apparently the film is full of really, really homophobic comments and jokes about and fears of being gang raped in prison and sort of stuff, and has been really, including by our reviewer Kamari, has been slated as being terrible.
Got a huge backlash about kind of racial stereotypes.
Yeah,
as well,
I was going to say, and the racial stereotypes too. Yeah, it's basically it seems like it's offensive on just about every single level. And people are saying it's a real step back in terms of both racial and sexual stereotyping in Hollywood. So not good, I'd say.
So I'll probably love it then.
I was going to say that will sell it to a lot of people.
I'm proud of our membership though, because that was the least read review of a 4. So clearly we are a very progressive.
But they didn't want it spoiled.
The Signal was reviewed by Kaz, which he really enjoyed. Low budget sci-fi film. It's been a good year for so far for sort of more hard-edged, really adult sci-fi, and this is another good example. And finally, The Seventh Son, and Sharuna drew the short straw on this one by having to review yet another young adult fiction film, which he thought was pretty bad. And in fact, I have heard it was so bad because it came out in America before the Oscars, and it stars, among others, and it's got a surprisingly good cast considering, but one of the people in it is Julianne Moore, and she was in danger of Norberting her possible Oscar win because apparently she's so bad in it. Because if you know, when Eddie Murphy was in Dreamgirls, he was really, really good in it. Best performance he's ever given on film. And everyone was thinking he's going to win the Oscar for Best Supporting Actor. And then a month before the Oscars, Norbit came out. And it was so reprehensible on every level that he basically buggered his chances of winning an Oscar. And it's been called ever since Norberting yourself. And Julianne Moore, almost. So did Eddie Redmayne. Eddie Redmayne almost Norberted himself as well for his appalling performance in Jupiter Ascending. But as it happens, I think they both won because whilst their performances in those other films weren't good, the films themselves weren't really, really offensive on every single level, which Norbert was. So that's the films that have been reviewed so far.
Can I just pick up on something you said there? You said adult sci-fi. I take it you mean serious sci-fi and not naked sci-fi.
Yeah, not necessarily X-rated sci-fi, but just on sci-fi with strong sci-fi ideas and not hardcore. I was going to say that for a second again. Very misleading. You know what I mean though. I mean, like you get kind of sci-fi that's just got action, wham bang, thank you, ma'am. Again, a bit misleading. The kind of crowd-pleasing 14-year-old sci-fi, and then the stuff that makes you think, and things like Ex Machina is a good example, and The Signal is another good example.
Okay, talking about the Oscars, films open this Friday.
Well, you say that jokingly, and I'm hoping to God he was just being very good at promoting his own film. But towards the end of last week, at one of the advanced screenings, Vin Diesel was saying that he thinks that, and I'm not making this up, he thinks the Fast and Furious 7 has a chance of winning the Oscar for Best Film at next year's Oscars.
The Fast and Furious 7?
Fast and Furious 7.
Yeah, thank you.
It's Fast and Furious 7, I believe. Well, I actually personally think that this film might be the first film to win the Nobel Prize, but that's just my opinion. And it opens on Friday, and my ticket's booked 10:30 Friday morning. Fast and Furious 7. Looking forward to that.
Because I get up in the morning and the first thing I want to do is
I contemplated going to the 12:05 screening on Thursday night, but I thought I'll probably fall asleep in it. Yes, so I'm looking forward to that very first screening on Friday morning of Fast and Furious 7. Thank you, Mark.
It may be that it's actually a portent, because it may be that actually
for the apocalypse.
Yeah, Hollywood is about to be wiped out by a meteorite, meaning that the 2016 Oscars will be held in a Holiday Inn in Northern California, and actually Fast and Furious 7 was the last major film. So actually wins every Oscar.
Anyway, what can you say? Vin Diesel, the late Paul Walker in his final film, which they had to complete admittedly by using his brothers and some CG, but never mind. You've got Jason Statham as the main villain. You've got The Rock and Kurt Russell. I mean, what more could you possibly want from a film, frankly? So that's out on Friday. Also out on Friday, we've got While We're Young. So Kaz is reviewing Fast and Furious 7, by the way, for the site. While We're Young comes out, a comedy starring...
Is that because you can't trust yourself to give it in any way a remotely impartial review?
He pretty much begged me to let him review it, so I was okay, if you're that keen. Plus, he did all the other Fast and Furious movies to date, so I think he feels like he needs to continue holding on to this particular balloon. While We're Young, a comedy with Ben Stiller and Naomi Watts, directed by Noah Baumbach. That's being reviewed by Sharuna, and her review's actually already written, so I've read that, and it sounds quite good. An interesting story about an aging couple who become friends with a younger couple, hipster couple, and how, when you suddenly realise that maybe you're getting on a bit, but the hipster couple are into watching things on VHS tape and listening to records, Ed, and playing board games. It's all very hipster, whilst the older couple just watch things on Netflix and stream music. So I think we can probably relate to that one. And finally, The Water Diviner, which I believe Kamara's going to review for us. That's a new film written, certainly starring and directed by Russell Crowe.
That looks utterly joyless.
Not a great title, I have to say, if I want my opinion, but it's about a father who goes to Gallipoli to bring back his son's bodies, and then discovers one that might be alive still. So and goes in search of trying to find his surviving son. It didn't look like a laugh a minute in the trailer. No, you're right, Ed, but it didn't look like a bad movie. I thought I might enjoy that, but I just thought the title just totally puts me off. It's such an awful title. But anyway, if you don't mind Russell Crowe starring in and directing the film, then might be one for you.
Get stuck in.
Right. So we've got some Blu-rays that are going up this week or have gone up this week, Steve, and I've taken a great deal of interest in this myself because obviously I've been buying some Blu-rays recently. So what do you recommend?
Well, Paddington is absolute joy of a film. I mean, I know Mark did a quick review for us when it came out at the cinema, and I'm sure he'll agree with me here.
I'd have given it a 9, though, Steve, not an 8.
Oh, did you give it? You give it?
I would. I don't know. I think I forget I scored it. I would have given it a 9.
Yeah, I give it 8, didn't I?
Yeah, meanie.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, they totally capture the spirit of Paddington, whilst at the same time obviously updating it for the modern times. And I thought that Ben Wishaw's voice work was, he was brought in as a late replacement for Colin Firth, who left the project deciding he wasn't really suitable for it. A conscious uncoupling, I think, as he described it.
Can you just explain who this guy is? Is he the guy that played the new quartermaster in Bond?
Yes, he's cute.
Right.
Yes,
okay, yes, I know who you
mean. He's got a really calming, lovely voice, and it really works well for Paddington. His sort of politeness and sort of always slightly flummoxed when he gets off into problems. It really works well, and the animation's great. I mean, you really do empathise and feel for Paddington, and the cast is really good, and it makes some really lovely little sides. Things like it makes a brief mention of one of the inspirations for the original book, which is the kids being evacuated from London during World War II. Mr. Gruber, who's sort of a German emigre, makes comments to his family moving to London before World War II. So it touches on immigration and people moving to other countries. There's a calypso band that constantly appear throughout the film as a kind of Greek chorus that's again really works well. And I think in these current times, it's still a valid point to be made, and they do it subtly, but they throw in lots of really funny jokes and really great observations about Londoner in the film. There's a brilliant bit, Mark, when in the taxi journey, going past every London landmark, and at the end of it, he goes, "Was that route really necessary?"
Yeah,
that's right. That was really funny.
My wife, isn't there a line where he's on the phone to the insurance company? It's like, your call is moderately important.
To us. Yeah, it's genuine. It's very, very funny. It's got slapstick and visual comedy for young children. It's got some very witty, clever jokes for the adults. It's a film that the entire family can enjoy. The disc itself is great, lovely picture quality, and a very, quite a surprisingly active surround sound, because obviously a lot of his comic antics, there's things crashing all around and stuff. There's an earthquake at the beginning of the film, actually, which is quite well rendered in the low end, Ed, with the subblended. So you'd like that, I think. And some nice little extra. Actually, the extras are a bit of a letdown. They're all very, very brief little featurettes and nothing more really than adverts for the film. But certainly in terms of picture quality, sound, and the movie itself, fantastic. If you haven't got it, I recommend you. It's highly. The kids will love it, and so will you. Next week, Blu-ray wise, not that much out actually. There is a Zavvi exclusive steelbook of Desperado, basically El Mariachi remake by Robert Rodriguez with Antonio Banderas, which has never actually had a Blu-ray release in this country. So that's being reviewed by Kaz. So for either fans of the movie or fans of Steelbook, that might be interesting. And I've got Predestination, which Kaz reviewed at the cinema about a month or two, like 6 weeks ago. So it's had a quick turnaround to home cinema. And that's starring Ethan Hawke. It's a time travel thriller based upon a short story by Robert Heinlein called All You Zombies, which I've got to say I really enjoyed. I think if you're familiar with time travel movies, you'll probably pick up some of the plot twists pretty quickly. But it was an enjoyable concept and well executed and really good.
Right, okay, so with the X-Files coming back, Twin Peaks is also returning to the screen. TV is big business these days. We just have to look at HBO series, you just have to look at Netflix and Amazon Prime. TV is where it's at. So, other TV series from our past that we'd like to see resurrected, and I'm going to start with Ed.
Airwolf.
Oh,
Yes.
I'm with you on that one.
Now, to be clear on this,
They'd CGI it though.
Yeah,
They can get a helicopter, can't they? Surely, how hard is that?
it wasn't. No, it wasn't. That they had a short. It was more that they blew the same 6 enemy helicopters up each week.
Yeah, you've reused the same shots.
I don't know. It sits. It's one of those things where actually the premise is preposterous, a supersonic helicopter, so on and so forth. But actually, we've got many of the other bits and bobs that are needed. You know, we've had curious behaviour by the CIA in different corners of the earth over the last couple of years. We've got no shortage of completely whacked out war veteran helicopter pilots to choose from. And yeah, I don't know. It was just one of those things where if it kept some of the kitshness of the original, especially if it kept the soundtrack, then I think it would be just cracking early evening television. I'm not suggesting it should get a gritty reboot. I'm saying it should get a full.
But should it be
camp reboot?
But should it be a helicopter or should it be some kind of new flying device that's kept top secret?
Be a drone.
Yeah, probably.
So actually, the kicker is that the bloke that replaced Stringfellow Hawk could actually be, not just mentally scarred. He could be physically scarred, and he has to sit in a porter cabin in the middle of nowhere controlling it. It would lack a certain visual drama. You'd have to work on that as a construct.
So you see, you said that, and one of the things that I thought of, as soon as this question popped up on the running order, I thought straight away Knight Rider, and then I thought, well, actually no, because they did remake that.
Done it twice.
Did reboot it,
dreadful,
and it was absolutely awful. So I'm with you with Airwolf. I think that might. Would you do it as a straight-laced drama, or would you do it as a fun comedy, sort of 18?
No.
Type?
Airwolf never set out to be a comedy. This is really important. It has to have the same knowing this isn't wholly serious, but you can't play it for laughs. The laughs have to come organically from blowing the same 6 helicopters up every week. So it's a tough act to follow. It would need to be done carefully, but I think it'd be brilliant.
Okay, well, I'm going to go next, because usually I go last, but I'm going to go next. And my suggestion is more a case of, could they make it fit the 21st century and, the way politics are and so on at the minute, and that's Buck Rogers.
Yes, I was going to say that.
You mean remaking the Glenn Larson TV series from the late 70s? Yeah.
Yes.
That was a pretty
Buster Crabbe film series. Well, I've got to say, Erin Gray was one of my, along with the Bonnet Woman, one of my first crushes.
Yes.
Her in that cat suit.
Boogie woogie.
That was Metal Mickey.
No, Tweak. What did Tweak?
It was Tweaky. It was.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Again, but you reuse the same effect shot of a spaceship blowing up over and over again.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like Buck Rogers.
Yeah, I mean, sadly we lost Glenn Larson earlier this year, didn't we? Unfortunately, he died. Yeah, he did.
Well, Jan Michael Vincent, he died young, didn't he?
Yeah, that's not necessarily as surprising. Now, one of those things, back when...
Well, Glenn Larson's career died 20 years ago. So.
Obviously,
his name was on everything, Steve.
It's
not Glenn Larson, sorry, Gil Gerard.
I do remember there was a loaded biography of John Michelle Vincent back when Loaded magazine was good, really good. It actually closed last week.
Yes, last one.
But it was saying, if Airwolf were real, the helicopter would have appeared out of that sort of hollowed out mountain where they stored it, and then actually just lurched into one side and blown up, because he would have inevitably been off his face on something. But yeah, I mean, I have to say, I was downvoted by my wife. I gave momentary thought to giving my son the middle name of Stringfellow, but unfortunately, a man who wears altogether too much gold jewellery, and I'm not talking about Jimmy Savile, has ruined that in the UK. So
yeah, but getting back to Buck Rogers, I mean, could they do it like they did with Battlestar Galactica?
I think the concept's still strong. The idea of someone being woken up in the future. There's plenty of room for stories
Futurama.
there. Futurama and Sleeper obviously have done it already. I mean, there's room for potential there. I think. I think there was talk about doing a Buck Rogers reboot actually.
But if you're going down the sci-fi road, can't you go the full mile and do Blake 7?
Oh well, that would have to be done by the Brits though. That would have to be a BBC
cardboard sets, Lego guns.
That's it. You see, that's the thing. If you do a reboot of one of our favourite shows from our youth, invariably half of the appeal was the fact that they were, let's be honest, rubbish.
Yeah.
And so if we do them with modern effects and modern production values and modern film equipment, would it be the same? Because
what
was great about Blake 7 was it was a really Doctor Who's kind of made that transition quite well actually, I think. But if you look at Blake 7, what it was a really, really cheap knockoff of Star Wars, wasn't it? And that was half the fun.
Well, going back to Airwolf, yes, it wasn't that expensive to do, but some of the stunts done in the helicopters, I don't know what the insurance business would be about getting them done again today. There's one episode, bizarrely, with David Carradine in it, and just as a complete, just a random shot.
Speaking of untimely deaths,
well, yes, wardrobe always a problem, but there's just a shot where they're testing. And they're slaloming the helicopter for real at a height of about 10 feet above the ground through cones. And it looks insanely dangerous. It has no great overarching meaning to the plot or the rest of it. And I'm just thinking, if you ask someone to do that now, they'd go, health and safety, no, go away. So, whilst there's issues about sets and all the rest of it, there are some other issues which are harder to solve.
Yeah, but I know what you're saying, Steve, but then again, the same could be said of a Battlestar Galactica, and they made that work for
absolutely
for a new audience.
Ended up being one of the best TV shows of the last 10-15 years. The result, because I think they were quite clever in their way. They obviously made it much grittier and more realistic, but they also, like all good science fiction, it was as much about commentary on our current situation as it was about the future. It was a commentary on things like insurgents and things like the war in Iraq and that kind of stuff, and that's what made it so prescient, relevant rather to our and therefore really, really valid television, regardless of the fact that it was technically sci-fi.
Yeah,
I'd like to see, if you want to move on to me, Phil, I don't want to jump the gun. I'd like to see Joss Whedon yeah, true. I'd like to see Joss Whedon use his post-Avengers muscle to get either some more films or a new series of Firefly made.
Yeah, you're talking about
that was cut off in its prime, and it was a really good show.
It was really good, and probably the last time I had a crush on somebody on a TV series.
Which one? Because
Engineer.
Jules State.
You like Kaylee?
That was the last time I had a crush on a TV character.
I like.
It's only because I can't remember the name of the lead actor that I didn't just make an unnecessary gay joke.
I was waiting for the homophobia.
I think we're all thinking that. I just don't know.
She also then appeared, didn't she crop up in some Stargate Atlantis stuff?
Possibly. I mean, to be fair, Firefly had a fair. Marina Bakarin as Inara was fairly hot, and Summer Glauer's River wasn't too bad either. So no shortage of attractive girls on that show.
Yeah, but the thing was, I think what you're getting at as well was the characters in that. Every one of them was a likeable character, and you wanted to know what was going to happen next. And the bad guys were genuine bad guys. Which we haven't seen for a long time, and there was that chemistry there. It was sci-fi, but at the same time, you could have set that anywhere, really, in terms of the story.
I mean, if you look at it, and this is an influence. It was actually an influence on his writing. He started the conception came from him reading a book called The Killer Angels, which is actually about post-American Civil War in the South. And what happened there and the Reconstruction, and that's effectively the establishment of the story in Firefly. It's basically the same idea, but in a sci-fi environment. So once again, it's much more of a commentary on human reality than it is about something set in the future. But yeah, I just love his writing, and watching those 13 episodes, you're thinking this is such a good show, and it got cancelled. And they didn't even broadcast some of them, and you're just thinking like, I don't understand the network sometimes. But now he's got a bit of. I mean, he did make Serenity the movie, which kind of encompassed a lot of what would have been season 2 of that series. But maybe he can use some of that muscle now to get either another film made or another series.
Yeah, or maybe just leave it as it is, because maybe you kind of maybe you kind of recreate the magic. Maybe it's better just being left.
It's a very awkward age, Steve, where it's probably been too long to reboot it with the same people, but not long enough to do it all over again.
Yeah.
Still, I mean, Netflix have got a bit of history now of helping. I mean, they did another series of Arrested Development after that had been cancelled twice, I think, by its original network. I know that Amazon picked up the third season of Ripper Street. The BBC dropped it. So there is room, I think, with the online, the subscription online providers, maybe bringing back some of the shows that have. Showtime are the ones that are doing Twin Peaks, which again is really out of the blue. I mean, and this is a long time after. Was that 91?
Yeah, but there's nothing really to build on, though, is there? Because did anybody understand what the was going on in Twin Peaks?
But it's good to see. I mean, obviously, David Lynch hasn't done much for the last 10 years anyway, but David Lynch and Martin Frost coming back, plus the original cast like Carl McLachlan, that's good. I think there's enormous potential for X-Files because they left an awful lot of loose ends at the end of that season. Season 9, I think it was.
You see, the thing with the X-Files was that once it got to season 4, I lost interest. It was kind of like Lost as well. I mean, after season 2, I lost interest. So.
Literally lost the plot, didn't it?
Yeah, totally.
Well, I think there's X-Files is going to face the same. Is going to face the same challenge that it always did, because there were those of us that loved it for the episodic monsters
of
and then
the week.
there were the Baker Foyle milliners that wanted it for the alien conspiracy stuff. And whilst they were sort of tolerant of each other, it still pulls the show in either direction. I much preferred the episodic monsters to just vague suggestions of aliens. I always found that unutterably tedious, but I know there are plenty of people that wholeheartedly disagree with me.
Yeah, but if this is just a six-parter, they're just going to be tying up the loose ends from the whole kind of conspiracy lunacy rather than actually jumping in the B-movie kind of monster appeal.
I don't know. I'd love for them to go back and find that the human liver fluke thing is now, I don't know, a successful car dealer in Wisconsin or something. That would be just magnificent. Subvert expectations.
Yeah.
I don't know if I've been rewatching X-Files from the beginning. I'm on towards the end of season 5 now, and when it was first broadcast, I used to enjoy the Monsters of the Week episodes, and I wasn't really interested in the whole overreaching story arc and the mythology and all that sort of stuff about the alien invasion aspects. But now I'm enjoying that more than the Monsters of the Week episodes, and I think the first film was very much part of the mythology and the alien stuff, and it bridged between 2 seasons. The film they did a few years ago was a Monster of the Week episode, effectively, and was generally badly received. So I suspect it's more likely they're going to try.
Was that the Billy Connolly one?
Yes. Where I think he's a child molesting priest now or something. Not off to a good start, really. So I think that they might, and there are an awful lot of loose ends, so maybe they could tie up some of the more alien invasion, overarching storyline mythology stuff.
Okay, let's move it on, because there's still 2 other people who have to give their suggestions. So, Mark, which sci-fi TV series, because that's where we're going with this, which sci-fi TV series do you want to see coming back?
Mine's Northern Exposure. Do you remember it from the 1990s?
Yeah.
I remember one joke on that, and it was where they were walking around in circles, and he said, "Why are we walking around in circles? Because one leg's shorter than the other."
It wasn't particularly funny, and nothing particularly happened, but it looked so good, even like it was in standard definition. So I think it'd look amazing, sort of reshot in 4K, hopefully. I just think it was just one of those things. It was just a really pleasant watch. Characters were all really likeable. It was amusing rather than funny. It was kind of a bit like Paddington in reverse almost. It was a guy moving up from New York into a society that was completely alien to him, and it was his gradual acceptance of the way things were in Alaska. I just loved it. It was just one of those things I genuinely loved it. I think it'd look amazing reshot in high def. That's
the only thing I remember from that series was that joke. I can't remember anything else. I can't remember what the setup was, or it's not something that made an impact on me.
I like the comparison. It's like Paddington in reverse. I think that's a good way to sell it.
One for the box.
I was permanently stoned during the 1990s. That probably helped.
That does explain a lot.
Mr. Botwright.
Well, we've done sci-fi. If we're on kind of explosions, could the A-Team be done?
Well, you had the big screen version, which mixed reviews really on that one, wasn't there?
But that tried to have an actual story, which wasn't the A-Team's point.
People were hit by bullets in it.
Yeah, we
went against the
unloading
whole
an
ethos.
entire magazine at 4 feet and missing everybody.
I've
Otherwise,
got
it's not
to
the
say,
80s.
I thoroughly enjoyed the Mythbusters one recently. I don't know if you caught it, Ed, or not, but
No, I didn't see that.
where they did the A-Team special, and it was basically, could they design the same thing within an hour? Could they be left in a shed with different bits and pieces and actually make what was made in the episodes? And it was really quite funny.
Well, that's the thing. I like stuff like Mythbusters. I like, old episodes of Scrap Heap Challenge. And this just threw in a couple of kind of, M16s and firing along the floor a lot.
I mean, don't get me wrong. The A-Team done right, or I mean, even more bizarrely, again, weirdly of its time, but could possibly survive outside it, is MacGyver. Although I don't suggest you bring back Richard Dean Anderson for it. I don't think he could grow the required.
That
mullet
was
these
something
days.
that I never ever watched. I have no idea what MacGyver is.
It defies easy description. We don't have enough time left in the podcast. The Wikipedia entry is sufficiently tongue-in-cheek. It recognises the foibles of the television programme. So, yeah, it's it would be an interesting one. I mean, by the same token, the Fall Guy. I used to love that.
The Fall Guy.
Yeah, I really did enjoy that.
Again, because it would more often than not, more by luck than judgment, that he resolved anything at the end of the episode. There's not enough
Lee Majors
incompetence.
one?
Yeah, Lee Majors. It was around about the same time as there was that movie about the stuntman as well, which starred Burt Reynolds.
Stuntman Hooper.
Yeah.
I think that was the inspiration.
Oh, yeah,
Usually
I
most
think
of
it was,
these TV
yeah.
shows back then
Yeah.
were basically a successful film would spawn some kind of TV series knockoff, and that was what the Fall Guy was.
Yeah.
Although I wouldn't mind seeing a reboot of $6 Million Man. There's been talk about that going on. I suppose they'd have to up the budget a little bit now. You wouldn't get much for $6 million these days. The $64 million man.
Well, I mean,
or
that's
$6 billion man. Or whatever.
With the way wearables and other technologies going, that's something which, given today's society, would probably do quite well.
Does anyone remember the Gemini Man with the digital watch where he pressed a button and became invisible?
No.
No. They,
You're showing your age now, Steve.
I think it was Patrick Duffy, by the way. It was the Gemini Man. I could be wrong.
No, you see, there is one other thing where it might finally be time, because it only exists as a pilot, which has never really been shown. It might now be time to actually unleash Heat, Vision, and Jack upon the world and make that. And because none of you will have the faintest idea what I'm going on about that, I will supply you the Wikipedia link and we can put it in the podcast as well if this bit makes it. But it's worth it simply alone because it features Jack Black as a talking motorcycle.
It sounds like a kind of Seth MacFarlane spoof, like Wheels and the Leg Man.
Jack Austin, a former astronaut who was exposed to inappropriate levels of solar energy, giving him super intelligence. He appears to lose his intelligence at night, requiring only Earth normal levels of daylight to reactivate it. His catchphrases are, "I know everything," and "knowledge is power." For real. Heat Vision, a talking motorcycle. He was created when Jack's unemployed roommate Doug was shot at by a ray, causing him to merge with his motorcycle. He is capable of speech and can fight by ramming into opponents. He is unable to use doorknobs and is unable to right himself if pushed over. And I'm sorry, it wasn't voiced by Jack Black. Jack Black was the astronaut. It was voiced by Owen Wilson.
Oh, this sounds brilliant.
Directed by Ben Stiller.
You can't tell me that you wouldn't be interested in seeing how that might work.
The theme tune was also sung by Tom Jones.
Look, we're talking something which is wall-to-wall class. I now need to see.
April Fool's now?
No. This genuinely existed. I now need to see if it actually exists on YouTube.
Because if it does, that's what I'm doing.
It does. Unaired pilot. It's not on YouTube. It's on another video link.
I know what I'm watching tonight then.
Well, there you go. But as I say, I have I've watched parts of it before. I can't say I was sober. It looked really good. So I think that would also be another candidate for being. You don't necessarily. I mean, to be honest, I don't. Whilst it would be nice potentially to have Jack Black and Owen Wilson do it, I don't think you need them. I think that the talking motorcycle and an astronaut with sun-based super intelligence stands up on its own.
This sounds like another Theodore Rex campaign to me.
See if we can get it crowdfunded.
Dear Netflix,
please.
So yes, have we now just?
I think you've blown all our minds, Ed. I think. I don't think there's anywhere we can go with this, to be honest, from this moment on.
No, I think that's pretty much it.
Okay, and on that bombshell.
Oh, one last thing. BJ and the Bear. Bring that one back.
I know, see, I've got vague memories of that one, but I think I can't remember what it was actually about. I just have vague memories of the truck driver. Yeah.
Again, rip-off of the Clint Eastwood movie.
Yeah.
Which way you can remember, which way but loose. It was a TV version of that, basically.
But it's an actual bear.
Name now, isn't it?
No, it was a monkey, wasn't he, Bear? I don't know why he was called Bear, actually.
You say that like I should know.
Well, true, yeah, fair enough.
Do you remember Gentle Ben?
Yeah, I remember that.
What
The
did
littlest hobo.
I can't even remember how the bear actually helped them.
I don't know,
growled a bit.
by being gentle and not
By
tearing
not
them
eating
from them
them.
and eating them, basically.
Can I finish this now?
Yeah, sorry, it's
My thanks to Steve Withers,
Remember that face I showed you, Scully? I'm making it again.
Mark Hodgkinson,
Virus has mutated.
Mark Botwright,
We're going down to the morgue.
and Ed Selley.
You've got to train for that kind of heavy lifting.
Don't forget, you can also follow us on Twitter and Facebook, bookmark AVForums.com for latest reviews, news and video, and you can also leave us a rating on iTunes. Even if you didn't enjoy the show, you can still leave us a rating. We'd rather you left us 5 stars though. I'm Phil Hinton, thanks very much for listening, and we'll see you again next Wednesday.